This is our fourth and final program, and it's called Advocacy for the Poor, which I mentioned last week may be, after our first week's discussion, not quite the politically correct way of stating that, but advocacy is a very important leg in the addressing poverty program. And so tonight we wanted to share with you advocacy at different levels of government. At local government, state government, as well as federal government, and then some multi-level lobbying on certain issues of different levels of government. So tonight we're going to start with local government, and I'm going to introduce to you Yvonne Parra, who has been the lead organizer for Durham CAN, which stands for Congregations, Associations, and Neighborhoods, which I think probably many of the churches that are in attendance tonight, I know Pilgrim is a member of Durham CAN. So Yvonne, if you'll come forward and share with us what you have to share.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let me make sure that I time myself, because Tom has been very clear that I can only speak for 20 minutes. And after that I need to be quiet. My name is Yvonne Parra. I'm from the deep south, from Colombia in South America. So if you detect an accent, it's because I have one and there's nothing I can do about it. If I say something incorrectly in English, I would like for you to ask me, and I'll be happy to try to say it in a different way. But I was born speaking a different language, and so I have spoken English just for the last 15 years, so bear with me as I talk. I want to start by giving a couple of stories that exemplify the work that I do. It is a Friday afternoon on Charlotte, North Carolina, and there's about 1,000 people belonging to about 500 congregations, associations, and neighborhoods from across the state, marching to the headquarters of Bank of America to deliver a letter to the CEO wanting to engage the CEO of Bank of America in a conversation about interest rates and the treatment of veterans and military families by the bank in its national operation. And if you can picture a Friday afternoon downtown Charlotte, 500 people walking peacefully to the bank and asking to get a meeting. That's the first picture that I want to get in your mind. Second one is about 25 clergy and lay leaders walking to the main offices of Duke University to meet with its president, to talk about living wages for the workers at the university, and trying to make sure that there's some kind of relationship and negotiation with Duke University about that issue. The third one is 1,000 immigrants, mostly Latinos from across the state, meeting with the Secretary of Health and Human Services at a public meeting to discuss the hiring of interpreters at clinics and health departments and departments of social services all across the state. What that has in common is that I'm telling you stories of organizing of organizations connected with Durham CAN. Those are campaigns that Durham CAN has led. And Durham CAN stands for Congregations, Associations, and Neighborhoods. It's an organization that was it's built out of the model of community organizing developed by the Industrial Areas Foundation. Some of you might be familiar with Saul Alinsky, famous or infamous, depending on whether you like our president or not. But Barack Obama happened to attend a training of the Industrial Areas Foundation before he went into politics. And our organization became infamous or famous, depending again on your political persuasion, because he happened to try organizing before he went into politics. Later on, he decided to run into the Senate and then for president, and the rest is history. But the Industrial Areas Foundation is the largest and the oldest community organizing network in the United States. It builds organizations of organizations, mostly faith-based institutions in local communities. There are 67 of those networks in the United States, in Canada, in Germany, in the United Kingdom, and in Australia. It's like if you think about the IAF as they built a franchise, a model of community organizing that has been perfected over the years, which is not a movement, and we have great respect for movements to address questions of poverty, but it's different than a movement in a sense that movements rely on charismatic leaders most of the time to resolve issues of poverty, and usually are funded by outside money, and they work on addressing an issue that is hot at the moment for a given community, and once the issue is resolved, then there's not an infrastructure in place to be able to continue doing some other things. The work that I do is similar, or could look similar to someone looking from the outside, but it's based on building organizations of organizations, like mostly congregations, and this church is a proud member of Durham CAN, and rather than working on what's hot at the moment, we spend quite a lot of time developing an agenda that is inclusive and respond to the questions of thousands of people in the community. Right now, we're going through a process of developing the agenda of Durham CAN for the next 2 years, and about 1,200 people have participated in conversations in their congregations, in their associations, in their neighborhoods. If you picture English classes, board meetings, Bible studies, in many different places of the city and county, where we ask folks a couple of simple questions. If they had the power to change something in this community, what would it be? And if there's something that their congregation or institution should stand for or with them, what would it be and why? And those questions lead us to get to know literally thousands of people and their stories, and they're poor and not poor, because we believe that to be able to change things, you gotta, if you only organize low income or poor folks, you only would have enough power to make small changes. And so our organization brings together people that are in different circumstances in their lives, and we go through that process and get actually all those folks to agree in developing and narrowing those conversations. If you imagine 2,000 conversations into about 6 or 7 priorities that are important for them and where everybody wants to put energy into. And then we do something that is very different than activist groups, which is that we spend quite some time researching solutions. So we don't go to power or decision makers for a solution, so we don't say, okay, there's a problem here, solve it. We say, here is the problem, and here's what we think we need you to do, and we want you to do it within 90 days. And we want to congratulate you and treat you very nicely if you do it. But we also want to bring you back, or put all our people and all our energy to make you feel a little uncomfortable if you don't keep your word. And that has made us very successful, because we keep relationships of accountability with decision makers, elected officials, and members of the private industry. That doesn't mean we hate them or they are our enemies. Many times we collaborate with them and we work together on things that are important to them, but we're very clear about the interest that we have, which is the interest of our members. And we go to them with questions such as, would you allocate $400,000 to create a program on health care to serve low-income families in this community? And Duke University or Duke Hospital, would you agree to cover with your insurance all your doctors so they can volunteer in the community while they do their work for low-income families? So it's very specific, it's very accountable, it's very public, it's not antagonistic, but it's accountable. Again, if we ask our head of the county commissioners to work with us to make sure that Triangle Transit Authority pays a living wage for all the jobs that will be created to the transit development in the future. About 9,000 jobs is the estimate that would be created by the transit development. And she sits on the board of Triangle Transit Authority. And she goes to one of our meetings and she says that she's going to work with us to get that done. Then we follow through, we go to a meeting with the CEO of Triangle Transit Authority, and we have her deliver the message on behalf of our organization. And once she's successful in doing that, we're going to congratulate her in May for making sure that there's a living wage that will cover about 9,000 workers. By the way, that living wage is going to be the highest in the Triangle. It's going to be about $12.59. Cross your fingers, it hasn't been completely finished. But that's the kind of work that we do that addresses the systemic roots of poverty by organizing lots of people that are different, that are black, white, Latino, poor, middle class, upper class, educated, uneducated, folks that believe that the world could be different. And we all belong to congregations, and we're taught that we should work to recreate the world and to build a kingdom, but many times folks are not equipped in congregations to be able to do that. We know how to do charity very well. If someone says there's a lot of low-income elders in this community, let me write a check, and that gets me out of trouble. But there's not a systematic way of training folks as to how to advocate successfully for those endeavors. And that's what Durham CAN is. It's a vehicle for ordinary people to negotiate big deals with decision makers. And over the last 13 years, we have been very successful on changing a number of things, from the living wage to on the city, the county, the schools, and Duke University, now going into TTA, Triangle Transit Authority, getting in partnership with a number of good agencies in this community, a program going to serve low-income families with specialty care that they wouldn't get otherwise because they lack insurance, changing the housing code because landlords were taking advantage of folks that were not sophisticated enough to know the rules and regulations, and making sure that they wouldn't be taken advantage of. Spending quite a lot of time in auditing the conditions of the public schools in the district, and negotiating with the district about 1,700 improvements to all the buildings in the public schools, creating a Latino Parent Council, which is a group that meets quarterly with the school superintendent to deal on questions related to the education of the children, to any other issue that is important to the community. The environment on the McDougall Terrace, the largest public housing neighborhood in this community. There was a company that was dumping chemicals for about 30 years into that community. It was impossible for the residents to be able to have someone to visit, someone that you and me give for granted when they get together in their community. They wouldn't be able to do that because it smelled really bad. And somebody upstream was making millions of dollars selling chemicals in a local company, and about 35 clergy and lay leaders show up one afternoon with the News and Observer and knocked at their door, and we request a meeting with the CEO. And the CEO was very surprised, but because the News and Observer was there, received us, and the residents asked them to resolve the problem. He said, this is impossible. I've been trying to get the city and the state to talk, and they don't talk. And if you can get the city and the state to talk, I will invest $1 million in resolving that problem. A couple of months later, we packed the community room at McDougall Terrace. Representatives from the state and the city were there, but the CEO of the company didn't show up. We left an empty chair for him. Months later, he invested $1 million in cleaning up the mess that he had created, and that's how we address poverty in Durham CAN. So I'll stop here. I don't want Tom to be upset with me, but I'll entertain any questions that you may have.